Black Oni.
What is up, YouTubes? It's your boy JBlaze06 here, giving you a new tutorial on Photoshop. Now, what I'm going to be showing you are a couple of quick tips that are probably really common to most of you. You might already know about these. I'm going to be teaching you about the importance of layers, how to best use layers, and then clipping masks and how to accompany those ideas. So if you already know how to do all that stuff, you can skip this. If you don't, then we'll get right into it. So one of the things I'm doing right here is I'm working on Solid Snake, Chibi Solid Snake, of course, and you can see the line work. Of course, the first thing you see is the source. I have a sketch that I worked on, figured out what I want to happen on it using, physical media, got the shading in there and everything, and from there I create the line. So I went in with the paintbrush, a black paintbrush, kind of went in and fine-tuned all of those details. You can see the layer already separated. You have white, you have the background, of course, white, you have the source, you have the line, and then you also have this other layer called solid. Now, this easiest and quickest way to do the solid, no pun intended, is to duplicate the line. The way that I usually duplicate the line is if I'm using a Mac, if you leave your finger on Alt/Option, and then you click and then drag. Very simple. Don't have to worry about it. Creates a copy, no fuss, no worry. Next thing I do is I press G. Or if you just go all the way over here to the paintbrush, you can do that. And then from there, you just start going in, start filling in the spaces. Look at that. In an instant, I already have all this, so I'm not going to bore you with doing all this again. I've already done it before, so I'll just put that in the trash. You should have, after that, a solid layer underneath that. And this will do a lot of things for you. I'll show you exactly what that does in a second. But you can go in here, clean everything up, make sure that it's not going outside the lines. Some of those are going outside the lines. And if you're wondering what I'm using to do my work, is I'm using a Cintiq 24 HD Touch, which for you guys at home, you do not need to be using a Cintiq in order to be an effective digital artist. The reason why I got the Cintiq is because this is a very natural feeling process, since I was trained traditionally as a painter. That's kind of what I started as. I transitioned to digital art because I really love the digital art making process. I really enjoy it. Don't have to worry about any of the mess. And essentially, I'll finish the rest of that part later. You can see what that is in the end. If you go to my DeviantArt page or blackoni.com, it'll be on either of those. The point that I wanted to make is that layers are super important for making digital art. And I'm going to show you why. This layer is going to be called hair. Name all of your layers so that you know exactly what you're looking at and you can keep yourself organized. Now we're going to go over here and select a brown that I think would be pretty good for hair. Probably the reddish brown. Go all the way down here. This is going to be the mid-tone, by the way. So whenever you're laying down the flats, you want to make sure you're just laying down the mid-tones. And so go all the way around here. Don't even worry about that because you'll see very soon why. And right now, just going through with the selection tool, being very loose, not worrying about it too much, right? I'm gonna go here, erase some of those lines, some of those excess lines. The good thing about that, of course, is that these lines are so thick, it's easy to kind of stay contained with that. Now, the reason why we have this layer down here is if I do anything outside of the line work, I can quickly leave my finger on command and then press on the actual layer. And that's going to select everything that's within the solid. But then what I'm going to try to do right now is select everything that's outside of that area. So to do that, you can go to select and then inverse. That's Command-Shift-I. That's usually what I do. So I use shortcuts for pretty much everything that I do. So Command Shift I selects everything that is outside of that selection. So you can even see right there that I'm making a little doodle. Just press delete and look, it's already done. You got clean hair without even worrying about it, without even really trying. Go through with the lasso again, do this part again, and this is also hair, then boom, just fill it right in. You got the flats for the hair done in an instant. Now I'm going to show you something that may blow your mind, maybe not. Let's find out. So I'm going to make another layer and make this called bandana. Right? Obviously, I'm going to be coloring in the bandana next. You don't have to do this part right away, actually. You can do this after, but I'm selecting the color now. For the purposes of the demonstration, I'll just select the color right then and there. Press L to go to lasso. And if you want, you can always use the magnetic lasso or the polygonal lasso, but I like using the freehand lasso. And I'm using a Cintiq again, so I can just very quickly and easily tell the software exactly where I want to go. And what you're seeing is that exact thing. And so another pro tip is, if you ever see an area of a selection that you want to go back to and add to, if you leave your finger on Shift, you can go right in there, just like that. And then you press Option Delete. And there you go. It doesn't look as much of a big difference, but when I do that, you can see I added the headband. And as you can see, it's not going into his hair because the hair is a layer on top of that. So if the placement of all of your layers, those will determine exactly where you are. So I can go through and, a lasso and erase that. But if you want to be effective and if you want to have a great flow and be efficient, the best way to create images would be to work on your layer. Just make sure that you have things organized, you have them layered on top of each other exactly the way you would want them, so that only the ones you want to show will show. The next thing I want to show you is the clipping masks and the reason why they're important. So I'm going to use the example of duplicating the bandana layer. This is what I do for all my pieces, by the way. I duplicate the layer by leaving my finger on Alt Option and then dragging it again, and then I name it Bandana Render. That way, no matter what I do on that layer, it will be dependent on that other layer. Now, if I want to go through and start darkening that, and now I'll select my brush, make sure I have transfer turned on. And one thing I always have on when I'm doing shading is transfer on, unless I'm trying to do hard edge shading, of course, or cell shade. And I'm going to go through and start coloring. And I'll even use the lasso real quick just to show you real quick. But if I start going a little crazy and going outside of that line, next thing you know, I'm making marks outside of that, and I don't really want to do that. I only want to go within the bandana. So the best way to ensure that you're staying within the area that you want to paint is to use a clipping mask. Now, if you leave your finger on Alt/Option, I believe on Mac, on PC it's a little bit different. Oops. On PC it'll be a little bit different, of course, but if you leave your finger on Alt and you go in between the layers, so remember before we used Alt to duplicate layers. Now we're going to use Alt in between the layers. So the render will be on top and the non-render will be on the bottom. That'll be the flat. Now everything that I've done only applies to everything that is within the bandana layer, the one below it. No matter what I do, it'll only go over the stuff that's within that layer. This is the most effective way to render images, aside from, of course, using gradients and different effects. Those usually add a little bit of artificiality to the piece. I usually don't do that unless I'm trying to be really quick and really simple. And yeah, this is something that can be used for a variety of different things. You can go through and make patterns based off of this and then apply shading to that pattern only just by using that. It's insanely useful and it's insanely time efficient. It's awesome that we have this technology You know, I always say to people, if the old masters of painting had the techniques and the tools at their disposal that we have today, they would absolutely use that, because they'd be able to do so much more work. They would be able to do it faster. It's just so much more efficient, and their quality of their work would be insane. I would love to see what, you know, Michelangelo would be able to do with, you know, digital art techniques now. But anyway, if you guys like the video, remember to press the like button and leave a comment down below, and subscribe to stay in tune to all the stuff going on the channel. There's way more content on the way, especially for you digital artists and gamers. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Game on, and Jay Blaze out.